the UN has such tremendous potential, not living up to its potential. There is such tremendous potential, but it is not living up. When do you see the United Nations solving problems? They don't. They cause problems. So if it lives up to the potential, it's a great thing, and if it doesn't, it's a waste of time and money.
And that was President-elect Trump earlier today saying the United Nations is not living up to its potential after the Security Council voted to condemn Israeli settlements. Others are taking things a step further and now calling on the United States to kick the UN to the curb. Watch this.
We're paying an organization that spends half its time, more than half its time, and energy and resources and bureaucracy trying to attack the only Jewish state on the planet, a tiny little speck, while genocide, mayhem, murder, terrorism is going on all over the world. It's good real estate in downtown New York City, and Trump ought to find a way to put his name on it and turn it into condos.
I think we ought to get jackhammers, and we ought to jackhammer the whole thing off, float it into the East River, ask anybody who would like to host it to come pick it up, haul it off, and it'll be a lot easier to park in Manhattan after we get rid of it.
All right. Well, in response to growing outrage over the United Nations, the Washington Free Beacon is reporting that, quote, Congress is moving to cut U.S. funding to the UN in wake of anti-Israel vote. Joining us now is Texas Congressman Louis Gohmert, and back with us is the author of Defeating Jihad, The Winnable War, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us on the subject.
So great to be with you.
Pleasure to see you. Unbelievable today, these developments.
I just keep coming back to this. Thank God Donald Trump got elected, or we would really be in trouble. So I've talked to a number of colleagues. I've got a bill that hopefully will be drafted by Friday anyway. Two things. One, we don't give a dime to the UN until they rescind that resolution. And people are saying, oh, they'll never do that. Fine. They don't need our help to be anti-Semitic. And then the other is to prevent even one dime, making it a crime, to use any government money to recognize Palestine as an independent country or state, because that's what I keep hearing is going to be the next shoe to drop. This administration, Kimberly, it reminds me of one of my elementary school teachers. Out of 6 teachers, 1 loved bullies, and she always supported the bullies over the victims. And that's what this administration does. Look at it. Who have they given more money than anybody?
Right.
Iran, the largest supporter of terrorism. And then you look at who they're supporting in this. The Palestinians that have wreaked havoc. And as people have said over and over, there's only one place where Muslims have complete freedom in the Middle East, and it's Israel. So they're our friends, and this is an outrage, but it is so consistent with this. And, you know, these guys, you listen to Kerry, he lied when he talked about Genghis Khan. He lied when he threw somebody else's medals over in the White House. He's lied over and over again. The State Department lied about the attack at Benghazi being about a video, and now they're misrepresenting once again what's going on there, and we've got to stand up for Israel. This is such an outrage.
And undermining Israel, our key ally. Dr. Gorka, why do you think the United Nations is so anti-Israel?
Because of the politics that has taken it hostage in the last 30 years. Look, the UN made sense when it was created in San Francisco in 1945 after 60 million people were killed in World War II. With American leadership, it helped to stabilize the world. Look at the reaction to the Korean crisis. We deployed our forces there under a UN mandate. But it's failed in the last 30 years. If the UN really stood for peace and stability, then Yugoslavia wouldn't happen. Rwanda wouldn't have happened. The crisis of the Middle East and Syria wouldn't have happened. Look at one thing today, Kimberly. We now have 65 million refugees in the world. That's more than we had after World War II ended in 1945. The world is in chaos. The UN should be doing something about it because it isn't being led by the values of the founding of this republic, by the White House. We have the disaster that we have today. So the United Nations no longer serves the purpose for which it was created, quite simply.
And right after the UN was created, of course, The United States, President Truman, a Democrat through and through, was the first international leader to recognize Israel as being an independent nation, and now they're wanting to give those places back.
But on that note, Dr. Gorka, what can President-elect Donald Trump do, if you can give me a quick thing on this, to turn it around?
Well, I think the statements he's already made are very, very clear. The UN as an institution will not be favored by the White House after January the 20th. Remember, we are the largest funder of this institution. Without our money, it simply cannot function. And the 10 nations that were behind this, outside of the current administration, will suffer, whether it is bilaterally, economically, or diplomatically. They will pay a price, and they should pay a price for basically what is a modern version of anti-Semitism.
Can I throw in something?
Yeah, real quick.
The UN, I looked into this. Rockefeller provided that to the UN so long as it's used as the primary office of the UN. If we say they're no longer, stop providing visas, stop allowing them to come, they'll have to move to Brussels or somewhere else, and that land cedes back to its source. So opens up a lot of new territory for New York.
Something to check out. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Kim.